Hello and welcome to the Scientist.com Supplier Virtual Training Series. Today's webinar, the second in a four-part series, will focus on research categories and profile development. Just a few reminders before we begin the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available to all registrants and attendees within 48 hours after the event. As we all continue to work from home due to the pandemic, we hope you'll understand if we run into any technical issues or hear background noise from the speakers. We appreciate your patience and your involvement. If you have any questions during the presentation, please ask them by using the Q&A function, which you should see at the bottom of your Zoom window with the large letters Q&A. Our panelists will answer submitted questions at the end of the presentation. And when the event finishes, we would appreciate if you would fill out a brief survey regarding the experience. We'll provide more information about that after the event. First, I'll give you a brief introduction before our experts walk you through a number of topics, such as how to better expand your presence on Scientist.com, how clients can find your organization on the marketplace, how our category strategy can benefit your organization, and how the number of categories will be expanding in the coming months. My name is Sean Precy, and I'm Scientist.com's Director of Communications. I've been with the company for nearly 4 years and oversee all aspects of company-related communications and content. Our panel includes Andrew Nashid, Senior Director, Supplier Relations, and Matt McLaughlin, Senior VP of Compliance and Categories. Andrew is a Senior Director of Supplier Relations who has been with Scientist.com for almost 7 years. As one of the earliest full-time employees, Andrew helped to build our supplier network by assisting in all phases of the onboarding process. In his current role, Andrew focuses mainly on maintaining relationships with suppliers on our platform, sharing new opportunities with them, as well as helping them to grow their market share. During today's webinar, he'll be sharing key steps you can take to ensure your organization is successful on the marketplace. He'll be followed by Matt McLaughlin. Matt is our Senior Vice President of Compliance and Categories. Matt has been involved in drug research and discovery for over 20 years. Prior to his role at Scientist.com, he was a senior research scientist at AstraZeneca for 12 years before moving to procurement as a global category manager, supporting preclinical research and human biological sample acquisition. He joined Scientist.com 5 years ago, and he now heads 2 departments, compliance and categories. Our compliance department is responsible for ensuring we're compliant with all required legislation and regulations, as well as conducting due diligence on both clients and suppliers. As head of our category team, Matt drives the global strategies regarding specific areas of science to ensure the platform provides enhanced functionality and benefits to our users, which will be the focus of his presentation today. Again, we'd like today's webinar to be as interactive as possible. We'll be taking you through some commonly asked questions and showing you live examples of the Scientist.com platform, but we also encourage you to submit your own questions related to today's topics. So please type in your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen as you think of them, and we'll strive to answer as many as possible. Without further ado, let's proceed into the first area for discussion, profile development with Andrew Nashid. After a quick poll question, I'm going to ask Andrew a series of common questions we received from our supplier network.
So on your screen, you should receive a poll in just a moment. The poll question will be, what is the most important area of your organization's profile on Scientist.com? There's a couple different options: short description, media, research areas, or locations. Feel free to submit your answer, and we'll go through that towards the back end of the presentation.
Thanks, Andrew, for presenting that. First off, how do clients find suppliers on Scientist.com?
So to answer that question, I think I'll take you through the client side of the Scientist.com system. So just so everyone is aware, the way that Scientist.com is set up is actually each of the clients that we have on our system has their own customized marketplace. So each of the clients that we work with would go to their specific marketplace. So you can see with this particular test client marketplace, they would go to acme.scientist.com. If they were a researcher from Sanofi, for example, they would go to sanofi.scientist.com, AstraZeneca.scientist.com, and so on and so forth. The reason for that is because they have different customizations built in, they have different approvers and things like that. But the page that you see here is pretty much identical to what a client would see. And when a client would like to send out a request to a supplier, they really have 3 options. The first way that they can find a supplier is through a simple search. For example, if they wanted to search for a specific supplier to work with them directly, they would simply just search for that particular supplier. So I'm going to search for one of our test suppliers, which is Golden Pacific Sciences. You can see here when I search for them that their profile appears right at the top. The second way that clients can find suppliers is through what we call research areas. These are really the services that your organization provides. So they would do so by searching for the particular service that they are looking for. In this case, again, because we're on the test site, you can see I can search for that. When I search for our test service, you'll see that it appears on the top of the list on the left, and then a few other similar services or related services appear, and related suppliers appear as well. And then the final way that clients can find suppliers is through this suppliers button up top. If they click on this tab, they are actually taken to a new page, which we call our supplier intelligence portal. This is actually giving the clients the ability to filter through the different suppliers that we have on our system based on different criteria. So as I scroll down, you can see they have different ways that they can specify which suppliers they would like to work with. So whether those suppliers have certain certifications like ALAC certification or GCP certification. They can also search for suppliers based on location. So if they are based in Germany, for example, they can look for suppliers only based in Germany. Or if they're looking to work with a specific type of company, maybe a small business or maybe an academic core facility or consultant, they can filter based on that as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Is there any other information clients can search?
Yes, so clients will be able to see quite a bit of information on each supplier that comes up. So if we go back to this main page here where I was searching for our test service, once I actually click on this particular service, I'm taken to a new page where I would enter in the details of my request. Back to the original question, the clients, once they have the information or once they have selected a particular service, they will be able to select from the suppliers that are listed here which ones they would like to receive the request. And they can click on each supplier profile to actually learn a little bit more about that particular supplier. So they will have a description of that supplier, they will have some details about the services they provide, and quite a bit of information listed there as well.
I know this is a common question. Is there specific information clients look for on suppliers' profiles?
Yes, that's a question that's asked quite a bit, and clients look typically for quite a bit of information actually from the supplier profile. This is really a lot of times their introduction into this particular supplier. So it's really important to make sure all your information is kept up to date. Some of the key things though that they look for oftentimes is the company's description. So this is again, just one of our test suppliers with a very short description. You can see here, they also sometimes will look for certain certifications. A lot of times locations is very important to them. And even very simple things such as your organization's website can make quite a big difference as well.
I noticed on the page that there are stars next to or underneath the supplier's name. How do clients rate suppliers?
So just to make it clear to everyone, the stars that Sean is referring to are listed up here. So you can see them here for this particular company. They have about 4.5 stars. Clients can actually rate suppliers one of two ways. The first is after they actually complete a project with you. So after they've selected you for a project, they send you a PO, you complete the work, they are actually prompted to rate your organization. So they can submit a star rating from 1 to 5 stars, and they can also add comments as well. Additionally, suppliers can ask clients to rate them too. So if a supplier has worked with a client in the past, if your organization has worked with, let's say, AstraZeneca, for example, in the past, even if it was not through scientist.com, you can actually ask a client to come into the system and rate your organization. In your company profile, so this is the supplier side of things that I have pulled up right here for our test company, Golden Pacific Sciences. If you go to your organization's company profile and you go to the marketing section, there's actually a custom link that you can share with any of the clients on scientist.com. If you share that with them, they'll be able to go into the system and not only be able to send you requests, but if they've worked with you in the past, they can also rate your organization. Just one small note on ratings as well. Clients from the same organization are able to see the comments and different details that are submitted with a rating. Clients from other organizations are not able to see the comments, but they can see the aggregate of the star rating. So just to be clear, to give a simple example, if a researcher from AstraZeneca were to rate your organization and provide a comment, his colleagues at AstraZeneca would be able to see those comments. However, if a researcher from Novartis logged into the system, they would only be able to see that a rating was submitted for a particular number of stars.
Thanks, Andrew. Uh, do suppliers' profiles look exactly the same as all the other suppliers on the marketplace? And if so, how can they differentiate themselves from other companies?
It's an excellent question and something that we get quite a bit. So, supplier profiles are essentially set up the same way on scientist.com. So, we have 4 test suppliers here. If I click through a few of them, you'll see this is Beachside Biotechnology Services. You can see their organization's profile. If I go to another one like Golden Pacific Sciences, you'll see their profile. The general setup is about the same. So, every supplier will have their organization's logo in the top corner. They will have their short description up top. They'll have a list of all the services they provide. And then on the left side, they'll have some additional detail like certifications, their website, and professional associations. However, as you can see, when I go to a few other supplier profiles, you'll notice that there are a couple differences between the profiles. For example, this one here, Dragon Pharmacology, would be an example of a supplier that hasn't really provided that much information on their profile. You can see here, all they have is a very short description, and then they just have their website, a short thing about their headquarters, and that's about it. However, if we go to a profile like Golden Pacific Sciences, you'll see that this profile is actually filled out quite a bit more. So you actually do have the ability to make your profile stand out a bit. One of the big things that we always recommend is including media into your profile. That media will appear right here. So you can see, for example, with Golden Pacific Sciences, they added in a video, they added in an image as well as a PDF. So if you have brochures, if you have videos or anything like that, that can really help your profile to look a bit different than other suppliers on the system. And obviously scientist.com being a marketplace, it is quite competitive. So it's really important to make sure that you present your company in the way that you would like.
And then, Andrew, what do clients see when they search for a specific company?
So that actually goes back to the supplier profile. So when clients search for a supplier, all this information that you see here, this is information that you would populate as the supplier. So everything that you see listed here is everything that you have uploaded on your profile. So if I go back to my test company, Golden Pacific Sciences, and I click on the company profile tab, all the information that you see here, such as the logo, the website, the short description, even if I go to something like the research areas, which lists all my different services, or even under the marketing where I have that video and that PDF and things like that, and even the certifications uploaded, all of that essentially matches exactly what you upload on your profile. So that's exactly what the client will see. So a lot of times we get this question from suppliers of I can't really see exactly what the client side looks like. The really important thing to remember is really the client is seeing what you put on your profile. So it's really important to make sure that your profile is kept up to date, that you have all the relevant information there, and that everything there is listed that relates to your company.
Thanks for that. Before we get to our next question, let's see those poll results from earlier. Research areas, makes sense, interesting. Yeah. Andrew, what is the most important piece of a supplier's profile?
So that's actually a little bit of a tougher question than we presented. Obviously, if you look at a supplier's profile, each of the pieces of information does have some importance. So something that may seem as small as your locations can obviously make a difference as well. There are times where clients are looking for suppliers with certain locations. Additionally, something that may seem somewhat inconsequential, like your short description, is actually quite important as well, because it's one of the first things that clients will see. Even things like media can help your profile to stand out a bit. However, I would agree with those who answered the poll that actually research areas is probably the most important area of your profile. These are the services that your organization will appear in. So when a client searches on the system and they search for your company name, obviously your company will come up. However, if you provide a particular service and they don't know that you provide that service or they haven't worked with you in the past, really the main way that your organization is going to be found on our system is through these research areas. So just as I showed you before, when I searched for a test service and you saw those 4 suppliers appear, if you provide any service that you list in your research areas, you will appear in that list. So for example, if a client were to search for CRISPR, because I have it listed on my profile, anytime a client searches for that, they will see my company. So it's really, really important to go through your research areas. If there's anything that you're missing, if there's anything that you don't have listed it's really important to make sure you add those to your profile. And I'm very glad to see that that was the top result of the poll because it really can make a difference in being found on our system.
Great. And speaking of profiles, how important is completing the commercial due diligence?
So that's a question we get quite a bit. Just so everyone is aware in the presentation, under the RFIs section of the profile, if you click on that, you'll see one of them near the top is listed as the commercial due diligence. This is essentially a check that we run on all suppliers on scientist.com, and it is mandatory for every supplier that is registered on scientist.com. Additionally, once you submit it, it expires after a year. So we ask that you would actually submit it once a year as well. The commercial due diligence is really a check that we run on all suppliers on our system, essentially making sure that your organization is legitimate, making sure that you are a proper organization to be listed on scientist.com. It's very similar to checks that you may have seen clients running with suppliers outside of our system. But the really nice thing about our system is that you run this once on scientist.com and obviously resubmit it once a year, but then you have this set up to work with all the clients through our system. So again, it is vital to complete this on our system, and failure to do so may result in your organization not being listed or clients not being willing to work with your organization on scientist.com.
And kind of a related question, which actually has several parts to it. How do clients use RFIs? Who uses them and why? And how do these help suppliers?
Absolutely. So the RFIs, again, are under this section, this tab that I just pulled up. And you can see there's quite a long list of RFIs. And we actually have two types of RFIs on our system. We have technical RFIs and comply RFIs. The difference really being is that a technical RFI allows for a supplier to communicate directly to a researcher their skills and capabilities within a particular field. Whereas the comply RFIs have really been created in partnership with our clients and have been designed to be really a pre-assessment of suppliers who provide services in regulated areas, such as human samples, for example, that actually clients actually require that to be completed in order for them to work with your organization. So in short, really the RFIs allow for your organization to provide key information to our clients. The comply RFIs are used more of a pre-assessment, whereas the technical RFIs are providing information directly to researchers about a specific service that you provide.
Well, thanks for that. How and when can suppliers connect with clients directly?
So pretty much everything on scientist.com is direct connection with the researcher. So everything from your profile to everything listed there to them finding you based on the different services to them sending you a request all happens directly with the researcher. But more specific to your question, when a supplier does receive a request on scientist.com, it will look very similar to this page I have open here. This again is just one of our test requests. And I just wanted to highlight as well that anytime you receive a request, it is coming directly from a researcher. So that researcher has actually submitted that on scientist.com. And anytime you're submitting responses to them, it is going directly to them as well. So if we go to the timeline tab of this request, you can see here the client submitted their initial request up top and provided quite a bit of detail about what they were looking for. You can see then I asked a few questions about their request, and very shortly after they provided the answers to those questions. Any additional communication that takes place on the system, whether I'm sending a message to the client, whether I submit a proposal to them, whether I even decline the request, all of that is being sent directly to the researcher and they can respond back to you directly. Additionally, if you wanted to set up calls with them, if you wanted to email them directly or whatever else may be needed in order to best move that project forward, you can absolutely request that information and communicate off the system. The only thing that we do ask is that it is always best to post a summary of what was discussed onto the timeline tab. And you can also, too, we ask that the final proposal is submitted through scientist.com.
Thanks for that. And finally, and this is kind of a catch-all, what are some ideal behaviors and best practices for suppliers on the marketplace?
So there's quite a few things that we recommend from suppliers. Just keeping in the kind of vein of the presentation right now, The first thing I would note is it's really important to make sure that your company profile is kept up to date. There's a lot of information that you include in your profile, such as services, your general description, even your company name. All of that information, obviously, we know it can change at times. You may acquire new organizations, you may have a change in management or whatever it may be, so that different pieces of your organization may change. You may add a new service. It's really important to make sure all of that is kept up to date. The reason being is because it's really what clients will see you as on scientist.com. So if you add additional services, if you change something about your company, if you add new locations, all of that can help your organization on scientist.com. So it's really important to make sure that's kept up to date. Additionally, just from a general perspective as well on scientist.com, we always recommend that suppliers, when you do receive a request, to respond to that request, whether that's sending a message to the client, whether that's submitting a proposal, whether that's even declining a request. It's really important to make sure that you submit some type of response to the client so they're not waiting for your organization to respond. And finally, one of the big pieces of information that I always try to share with suppliers is when you do receive a request to respond as quickly as possible. We recommend suppliers respond in under 2 days if possible, and even quicker if it is possible. And we found that suppliers who do that really have a lot more success on scientist.com. Oftentimes, they are one of the first suppliers to engage with the client. They're able to show the client that they're interested in working with them, that they will take a lot of care in working with that project with the client. So it's really important to make sure not only that you're keeping your profile up to date, not only that you're responding to all requests, but that you're responding as quickly as possible.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Hopefully that was very informative for our audience. I know it was a lot of information, but I think it was very helpful as well. And I see there is a couple of questions that have come in. This is just a reminder that we'll be answering those at the end of the second presentation. So definitely keep sending those questions in via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Shifting gears, I'd like to welcome Matt McLaughlin, who will discuss Scientist.com's category strategy. For starters, I think it would be helpful, Matt, if you told our audience what it means when we use the term categories and category strategy. Can you explain this a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, hello, Sean. Happy to. So to start with a category, the way that we look at a category is that it's a specific field of science that supports researchers that can be made up of many different services. So to give you an example, would be the in vivo services category. This is an overarching term that we use for all the different services that fall in scope, such as pharmacology, toxicology, DMPK. So that's what a category is. And with regards to a category strategy, this is our approach to identifying the challenges and opportunities within a specific category to improve the user experience for both the suppliers and the clients. Now, this could be by creating solutions to common problems, such as how to communicate specifications in the first contact to speed up the process for a supplier to be able to submit a statement of work, or by looking to streamline an inefficient process, such as a supplier pre-assessment. Obviously, Andrew mentioned how we've done that with regards to commercial due diligence. We do look to do that in a category-specific approach as well.
Thank you, Matt. Before moving on, let's take another poll question. Which feature of the Scientist.com platform does your company find most beneficial? I look forward to seeing those results. Let's move on. Matt, why did you implement a category strategy approach?
Yeah, we noticed a couple of years ago that certain types of research was being increasingly requested within the platform. And through the conversations with users, both on the client and supplier side, there was more that we could do to support that research. As such, in about 2018, we created a team made up of relevant experts that focuses on these challenges and opportunities, with the aim to deliver a world-class solution that to the everyday challenges faced by the industry. So we have, as I say, a team that are focused on individual categories where they have prior working experience, and then they look to partner with our users to build a solution and then maintain and update that solution as time progresses.
And how does a category strategy benefit the suppliers on Scientist.com?
The intention behind the category strategy is to deliver benefits because it's designed to address the problems that are faced when working within a field of science. We do this through engagement early on in the strategy to ensure that we capture what the issues and opportunities are and ensure that what we build addresses them. Our category strategies can also enable a supplier to access tools and features that otherwise are not available off platform. Take, for example, our comply functionality, which Andrew briefly introduced in the earlier section. This has transformed how pharmaceutical companies conduct written pre-assessments of suppliers in specific areas to remove duplication, speed up the process of submission, as well as reducing the review time. So instead of completing individual long extensive questionnaires for each client, through Comply, you can complete one, submit it, and then maintain it moving forward. The information that's presented to the clients are made available to their QA teams or the respective governance teams that have control over whether a supplier is used to provide services. I think the most important thing to state here is that through Comply, we don't remove any control from the clients. And what we look to do is streamline the transfer of information to enable them to conduct their own individual evaluation, therefore saving both parties considerable time and resource.
And how do you select a category to be built?
In short, we spend quite a bit of time and effort in reviewing the categories that we look to build within the platform. Obviously, it takes a considerable investment from our side. So I look to pull together information from the spend data to look at trends. We speak to our clients. Where are they seeing challenges? What are they looking to progress in the future? Equally, we speak to suppliers as well, understanding whether they have new areas of science that's cutting edge and that can be quite challenging. And then finally, we look at external literature. We look at both the literature in journals as well as in different publications to spot any themes that are progressing where we can get ahead of the curve and look to build something to really supercharge new areas of science.
And as this says on, you can see on the screen there, Matt, what categories has Scientist.com built, and what are the next categories to be targeted?
Well, we've built quite a few in the relatively short time that the team's been together. So to provide a list, for want of a better phrase, we've done a lot of work in the human biological sample space. We've supported the real world evidence, health economics, outcome research, market access space. I've already touched on in vivo services. And then we've also looked at the discovery service areas. So things like DNA, RNA services, proteins, antibodies. And then last year, we released a new batch of categories that we built. They'd included raw materials, chemistry, manufacturing controls. We have a new area for personal and consumer care, which is a vastly growing part of the business. And then equally, we've delivered the categories to support biomarkers, as well as our new tool that should be launching in the early part of this year, which is our disease model finder, to support access and visibility to different models to support the research. And that's not where we end. So this year we've got another batch of categories that we're looking to build in the GLP IND enabling space. We have a consultancy solution that will be launched this year. We're looking to build out support around comparators. And then we started the early work with regards to moving into the clinical space as well.
Great, that is quite a few. But what happens if I'm a supplier that does not provide a service in the categories you've mentioned?
Well, I think it's the way to think of the categories is that it's an enhancement on the standard benefits of the Scientist.com platform. So even if you're a supplier that doesn't work in any of those areas that I've just listed, you're still fully supported by the core functionality of the platform. So as mentioned earlier, that we have a large number of different service areas. I think it's just over 4,000. And the aim of the platform is to support you connect with our mutual clients, but also to enable you to reduce your indirect costs of supporting those clients. I think the takeaway regarding categories is that we look to enhance the core functionality. And even if we didn't do that, then the platform can and still use successfully to support thousands of requests each month across many, many different areas of science.
Thank you. Now let's see what the second poll results tell us. Interesting. Matt, can you talk to us more about these results and how they tie in with what you see as the future of the categories team and the platform?
Yeah, well, the first thing for me that I find quite interesting is that the attendees today have seen benefits across all of the different areas that we've listed, and I think um, this is sort of resonates with what I'd hoped and what I believed based on the discussions that I'd already had, and our focus moving forward is very much on supporting suppliers, not only with the clients who are already on scientist.com, but increasing awareness of how we can support your overall business. Over the past couple of years, we've had a number of suppliers reach out to us to ask for support in working with a specific client that had contacted them, as they'd had restricted resources internally to get them fully set up. In effect, they wanted to put the business through the platform to access the range of features that ultimately made them more efficient. So some of these have been included in the poll, and I'd just like to take a second just to walk through some of them in a bit more detail. So, for example, our finance solution, it means that you don't have to set up with an individual client to be able to invoice and vice versa. Equally, we have our SciPay platform that enables access to the supply for chain financing solution. So there's no more difficult conversations with clients around payment terms. Ultimately, you can control the payment term that you want. I see that the most popular was the legal agreement, which absolutely makes sense given the time that can take to put these in place. And again, I think one of the key elements with this is just to remind people that, even if you brought a client to the platform, not only do you benefit from not having to spend all that time doing the legal with them, that you still form that direct contractual relationship, and you still can tailor the terms if required. I'm glad that the additional due diligence conducted on clients has raised some votes. One of the things that is important to note is, as Andrew explained with regards to the due diligence that we conduct on suppliers, we conduct an equivalent due diligence on our clients. So any client that wants to go through the platform will go through due diligence checks, and the intention is, again, just to make sure that they're a proper company, and to try to save you guys time and effort. And then lastly, the last couple are just nice to know is that every time you receive a request in scientist.com, there's actually a team of about 6-7 people supporting your organization with that request, whether that's come through a client that's already on the platform or one that you bring to us. If you have any problems getting a response out of a researcher, then let us know, because we can chase them. In effect, we can support your BD, your sales teams from that respect, and we'll do that with every single client. And one of the things that we have released during the last year is enhanced invoice tracking tools. We'll continue to be driving those. So we wanted the platform to give you a fantastic visibility over the spend that goes through your organization via scientist.com. I think the key message for me is that, as a platform, scientist.com can support you in reducing your indirect costs, whether they are the finance, the administrative, the legal. And ultimately, what we want to happen is that it results in an increased margin for you and ultimately a quicker project turnaround.
Thank you, Matt and Andrew, for sharing your expertise with our audience today. I'd now like to open the forum to any additional questions that may have come up during the presentations. And as I mentioned earlier, a couple had come in already, so I'll address those first. But again, just to remind the audience, if you do have questions, just click on that Q&A in the bottom of your screen and then type it in, and hopefully we'll get to it. So the first one that came in earlier was, as a supplier, when I register as a buyer to test the search results, no supplier information can be obtained. Please clarify.
Andrew, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
I can start it, and then I feel like you can probably finish it off.
Okay.
So just to note, Matt mentioned before, one of the things that we do is conduct due diligence on our clients as well. So as a supplier on our system, because you're registered on the supplier side, when you go to register on the client side, we restrict access. So basically, as you mentioned, you don't have access to see all the suppliers. You can't see your competitors. You can't see any information on the client side. And the reason being is really just due to confidentiality. Obviously, we want, if you are planning on making a purchase, if you are planning on outsourcing something, we absolutely welcome you to do so. But there are a few checks that we need to do. If you are just looking around the system and are trying to look at competitive information or something like that, we do have to keep some of that information confidential. And Matt, not sure if you wanted to add anything as well.
No, I think you've nailed it. Really, it's more around respecting the wishes of our suppliers, that when they use scientist.com, they feel that there is a level of trust and confidence in the platform, and the experience that the users highlighted here is reflective of that. In that we take great care with regards to access to information, and make sure that this is only available to people who should have access to it. And what I will add is, if there is if you're a supplier and you want to have a look at how you appear on the platform, reach out. We can always jump on a call with you and use the demo marketplace that Andrew shared to show you what it would look like.
Great, thank you, Matt. And I think this next question really is kind of geared towards you, Matt. What if we can't find the right items in the RFI list as the services we offer?
First of all, don't panic. It's not that we don't provide those services. It's that, as I say, we probably haven't developed the category strategy around that particular service area. The first thing you can do is let us know, because if it's something where we've seen an increase in use of the platform, then we may already be planning to build that RFI, in which case we'd love to have your feedback around the content of it. If it's not an area that we'll build, then you still have features within your platform where you're able to communicate that information. So thinking off from Andrew's presentation, making sure that you have your research areas selected around that service area, using the short description can be useful, as well as uploading the media. So if you have any white papers related to a service area, any papers that you've published, or any posters that you've taken to conferences, etc., that shows the efficacy of the study that you can provide, then that's certainly something that you can upload and make it available that way to researchers.
Thank you. I think we have another one. This one will probably be more geared towards Andrew. How can we be more visible when we already registered the company profile and the research areas? Can we be more proactive?
Absolutely. So like the question kind of mentioned, it is important, first of all, to make sure that your profile is up to date, make sure that everything is listed there. And as we kind of mentioned over and over, it is really important to make sure you have everything there. However, we also do have some ways that you can be a bit more proactive on scientist.com. And actually, there will be a webinar coming up on this in about a month from now. And we'll send out the registration too at the end of this. But just to note, if you go to your company profile and you click upgrade in the top corner, you're taken to a page where you can learn a little bit more about the different marketing opportunities that we have on scientist.com. You also have access to a case study that we did with a supplier who recently actually participated in one of our marketing plans, and they were able to see quite a bit of success. But these are ways that you can be, as was mentioned, a bit more proactive on scientist.com. You're able to highlight your services a little bit more to our clients, and you're able to reach clients at the point of sale as well. So these are really nice opportunities, relatively low cost for you to be able to not only just be listed as a supplier on scientist.com, but also be a bit more proactive in reaching out to clients. And then the only other note I would make there as well, obviously these marketing programs are great, but one thing that you can do as well that is no cost to your organization is if you go to your company profile and you go to the marketing section, you do have the ability as well to share a registered supplier badge on your company website or on your social media channels. And you can also share it along with your custom profile link. This link is good for any client that is registered on scientist.com. So if they click on that, they'll be taken directly to your company profile on your page. So it's not only important you can look into the marketing programs that we have, but also you can share this registered supplier badge on your company website or on your social media channels at no cost to your company.
Thank you, Andrew. And I think that actually answered another question we had as well. So no need to get to that one. With that, I think we're going to wrap it up for today. If there's no further questions, thank you so much for joining, everyone. And if you have any additional questions, or if you'd like to get in touch with us at scientist.com, our information is available on this slide. As you leave the webinar, you'll see a quick survey, and we'd greatly appreciate if you could fill this out. Also, there are 2 more webinars in our supplier training series coming soon. As Andrew alluded to, you can see the dates here and register on the same link you used to register for this one. We'll include that link in the follow-up email as well. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope you found the presentation useful. Bye now.